Okay, Math 10C, let's do topic 6.5, slope point form of the equation of a linear function. Well, if you're given the slope and a point on a line, or if you can calculate a slope and a point on the line, then you can come up with an equation for the line in what we call slope point or point slope form. You'll see those terms interchanged. Basically what it means is that this form of the equation allows you to see a point and see a slope on the line. So let's start with this line. What's the slope of this line? Well, if we take a couple of points on it, here I notice that if I started, I could go up 3 and over 2, so the slope is 3 over 2. Now I need a point on this line. Well, let's say that's going to be 2, negative 3. That's that point that we've got in red. Now that we have a point and we have a slope, we can say that any other point would be some point xy. Knowing this, we can use the slope as the rise over run, as y minus the y1 over the x minus the x1. That's our slope formula. Or we could multiply both sides by x minus x over 1 and come up with m times x minus x over x1 equals y minus y1. The slope point form of the equation of a linear function, or the equation of a line that passes through some point xy and has the slope m, is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That's what we're going to be working with in today's class. In example 1, describe the graph of a linear function with this equation. Here we have an equation in our slope point form. So first of all, let's look at it and ask, what's the slope? Well, the slope is 1 over 3. Now I want to know, what's a point on the line? Well, one of the points has to have the coordinates of negative 4, positive 2, because it's x minus x1, so that would be x minus 4, and y minus y1, and that would be positive 2. So there we have the slope and a point on our line. Part B says to graph the equation. Well, if we draw our axes, I'm going to draw my point negative 4, positive 2. There's the point negative 4, positive 2, right there. Now all I have to do is draw another point. So if I go up 1 over 3, rise of 1, a run of 3, I'll draw another point. Rise of 1, run of 3, I'll draw another point. Rise of 1, run of 3, I draw another point. Draw a line through those points, and I have my graph of our equation. You can check your understanding on your own, and then we'll move on to number 2. Number 2, write an equation using a point on the line and its slope. Well, notice I'm given 2 points on here. I'm given the point 3, 1, and I'm given the point negative 1, negative 2. To write an equation in slope point form, I got to come up with the slope and I got to come up with a point. Let's see the slope. The slope's got to be 1 minus negative 2, or y1 minus y2, y2 minus y1, over x2 minus x1, which is 3 minus negative 1, which is 4. So the slope is 3 over 4. A point, we can use either point. I'm going to use 3, 1 since it's positive. So my equation for my line in slope point form would be y minus 1 equals the slope, m, 3 over 4, times x minus 1. X minus 3, because that's the y x coordinate. And there we go. Now it says to write an equation in a slope y-intercept form. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the 3/4 x and the 3/4 times the -3, converting everything to decimals, and adding 1 to both sides. I get y is equal to 0.75x minus 1.25. So we can say that the y-intercept is at -1.25. Here's check your understanding question number 2. You can try that, and then we'll move on to example 3. Writing an equation of a linear function given 2 points. So the sum of the angles, s degrees, in a polygon is a linear function of the number of sides n of the polygon. So the sum of the angles in a triangle is 180 degrees, and the sum of the angles in a quadrilateral is 360 degrees. Write a linear equation to represent this function. All right. Well, we're going to make a chart, first of all, with our sum and sides and degrees. So we have 3 sides. 3 sides would be like a triangle. That means it's got to be a sum of 180 degrees. 4 sides is a quadrilateral. That's going to be 360 degrees. Now, write an equation to represent this function. Well, we need to know how many sides. Use the equation to determine the sum of the angles in a dodecagon. And the question is, how many sides is that? Well, we'll come back to that later. Now, let's look for a slope, and let's look for a point. Slope is a change in y over a change in x, so that would be 360 minus 180, or 180, over 4 minus 3, which is 1, or just 180. A point, well, I'm going to use the first point, 3, 180. That's all I need. Now I can put them together in my equation, and that would be y minus y1, or y minus 180, equals the slope, which is 180, times x minus 3. Now, expanding and simplifying it, if we chose to go further, we can leave it like that. I would get 180x minus 540 is equal to y minus 180. Now I can add 180 to both sides, and I'll be left with y is equal to 180x minus 360. Now, for part B, how many sides does a dodecagon have? Well, a dodecagon has 12 sides. So I'm going to substitute x with 12. That's going to leave me with 1800 degrees is the sum of the angles of a dodecagon. There's number 3 for you to work on. You can stop the tape and we'll continue. Number 4. Write an equation of a line that's parallel to a perpendicular or perpendicular to a given line. Well, when they want us to write an equation for a line that passes through the point 1, -1, and it's parallel to this line, what do we need? To come up with an equation, we need a slope and a point. A, point and slope, always. The point is 1, -1, because that's the point we're told to work with. The slope is 2/3 because it's got to be parallel to this line. 2/3 is the slope of that line, so the slope we're going to use is 2/3. So that gives us the equation y minus -1, or y plus 1, equals 2/3 times x minus 1. There we go. Part B. Again, we need a point and we need a slope. This time for a point, well, we're going to use the same one, 1, -1. And for the slope, we're going to use the negative reciprocal, which is -3/2. So here again, we're simply going to say, this time it's going to be y plus 1 is negative 3 over 2 times x minus 1. And we're done. Here's another question for you to work on. Check your understanding. Try it as practice. And then I want you for homework to do page 372, numbers 4 to 14.